You're listening to Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall on CJAD 800.
That is James MENNIE. He is over at the Montreal Gazette. Jim, not sure where to begin today, but can I bring this up? This Bloc Québécois letter from...
This is great.
This is a letter sent from Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet to
weird.
Anthony, and I'm trying to...
Secretary of State.
Yeah, the U.S. Secretary of State from the Bloc Québécois. Okay.
Yeah. And the thing is, there are so many layers to this story, each and every one of which will probably make a lot of our listeners' heads explode. But the fact of the matter is, you may recall that some trade representatives of the Biden administration told the Biden, we're not really comfortable with this signage thing going on over in Quebec with Bill 96. And it wasn't too specific, although the suggestion was they were thinking more for small, medium businesses that if they've got to turn around, start changing their signage or changing their websites or doing whatever it is that the Bill 96 requires them to do, they might find that a bit of a hardship, a bit of an expense, and is it worth it to do this in a market the size of Quebec? So here, coming to the rescue, enter Bloc Québécois leader Yves Blanchet, who sends a letter, he writes a letter, two-page letter to Anthony Blinken, and he basically says, look, you guys, when you deal overseas, if you're in France or Italy or Japan or Spain, you will put your signage in and you will adopt the language of signage and work because that's how your market wants it. That's how you want, and we think Quebec should be treated the same way. And so that's the essence of the Bloc Québécois' argument. He offers very, very magnanimously, Monsieur Blanchet. He says, I'm going to be in Washington in March. If you want to meet with me, I'll be more than happy to discuss this with you. Okay. But what I love, there's a line in here because he's preambling to delivering his argument. And he tells Blinken that Quebec was, quote, recognized as a nation in its own right by the House of Commons of Canada following a motion I had adopted by a strong majority on June 16, 2021. And for a second, you want to go, what's this guy talking about? And then you realize he's talking about what happened is absolutely true. What happened was this is the motion that saw Quebec given, essentially the Trudeau Liberals hand Quebec the power to insert Bill 96 into the Official Languages Act. And we're seeing the results of that today. And this is for real. But for me, the real icing on the cake is today, because news of the letter breaks early in the morning, everyone picks it up, and the bloc is gleefully handing out copies of the letter to all these news outlets that are calling up to cover the story. And then Pablo Rodriguez, federal transport minister and Trudeau's Quebec lieutenant, gets scrummed on this very issue. As he's walking into the caucus meeting, and he basically parrots everything that Blanchet says. He says, Americans, if they're in Argentina or Mexico, they work in Spanish, they're going to have to learn to adapt. It's as simple as that. That nice Philippe Champagne, our industry minister, turns around and says, it's incumbent on us to protect French. Now, you may find this a bit unusual. It's not really that unusual because, let's face it, the Trudeau Liberals really have to curry favor with Quebec, seeing the last part of the country where they are not completely detested. But what I find interesting is here is the leader of the Bloc Québécois really eating the lunch of the federal government on this because he didn't dispute. Rodriguez did not dispute what Blanchet said. He just said the same damn thing. In other words, you are echoing what this guy is saying, and who took it upon himself to address the U.S. government. Oh, yes, and of course, I guess to save some face, Rodriguez goes, well, Blanchet's not the Quebec ambassador of the U.S. I got news for you, buddy. Today he was. Yeah. And today, anyone who's following the chronology of this will see, you guys, he stole a march on you. And once again, here's Monsieur Blanchet turning around, living up to the reputation of the Bloc Québécois to defend Quebec's interests in Ottawa and apparently on the world stage.
I was going to ask if you just consider that, maybe this is a little too harsh. To me, this was like a mind your own damn business letter, wasn't it?
I wouldn't say it
No?
was mind your own damn business. It was very elegantly written, both in French and in English, and it wasn't the kind of we're maître chez nous, but the tone in the letter is I found to be more polite than the tone that was used by Rodriguez, saying they've got to learn to adapt.
Really?
I think twice before I said things like that out loud about your single largest trading partner.
Seriously.
The proverbial elephant that is right alongside, living alongside the mouse. But that's for them to deal with. But I just found it fascinating that, when this whole Quebec nation thing, it began with, my God, Stephen Harper, I think it was 2010. It was first mentioned, first tabled in the House of Commons. And people say, don't worry, it's just a symbolic gesture. It doesn't mean anything. It has become the currency of Canadian politics and indeed international politics. And it was all because of a government that was so craven about losing seats in Quebec that it would do whatever any Quebec regime wanted, and we seem to be paying the price today.
Jim, I want to know how Blinken reacts. Like, what you get a letter like this. Is he sitting there rolling his eyes? We've got a text of someone saying that he's fluent in French. So I mean, what's his reaction?
In the first line of Blanchet's letter compliments Blinken on his command of French. Which is not impossible. I know Americans who are quite fluent in French, and one other of them, John Kerry, was a Secretary of State as well.
But all
that said, listen, remember, Monsieur Blanchet is head of an opposition party in Canada. Mr. Blinken, his equivalent would be our global affairs minister, Madame Joly. So if he's going to reply to anything, it'll be to correspondence from Madame Joly. He's not going to, officially anyway, reply in any way, shape, or form, much less meet with Mr. Blanchet next March.
Okay. Meanwhile, in Quebec City, you have the National Assembly now, and the hardballs are being thrown. I love the fact that they're picked up on this whole pay. I love the Pierre Fitzgibbon comment, if I read it right today, Jim, that says you can't buy a minister for like $100. And I thought to myself, of course not. You need like double fee. You need thousands of dollars to be able to buy a minister.
Okay. First of all, and it's not just Fitzgibbon. Even Bernard Drinville said exactly the same thing. I think you had a clip of him on the news just before we came on. But I got to ask you guys, before we go any further, did you honest to God think that things would be this absolutely swinging from a chandelier, firing off an AK-47 crazy the second day into the session of the National Assembly? Things are going absolutely sideways over there. And the fact that they're having this serious conversation, they're asking this question, well, can you buy a cabinet? No, you can't buy them for $100. In fact, the way the system works, the biggest scandal is cabinet ministers every 4 years get together with their buddies and they try to buy your vote with your money. It's called an election. And as for the fundraising, $100, this was more of a social thing. And if these MNAs are turning around trying to sort of drum up more money for the party, it's also because the CAQ is very sensitive to what happens to the PQ. The PQ outdraws everybody, which is why they sort of like tried to calm things down. So they say, because at one point the CAQ is going, I think it was Robert just saying, well, perhaps we'll just eliminate popular fundraising altogether, which is a huge form of revenue for the Parti Québécois. And it's a minute, okay? Everyone could just take a chill pill here. But it's just going completely out the window. Of course, you can't buy influence for $100. It's going to cost way more than that. If indeed money is even a matter.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I mean, right now, I'd be more concerned about how much of my money is being spent to lure foreign business people to Quebec for projects which may or may not pan out. But that's the one side. And in the meantime, Quebec Solidarity keeps hammering away at this. Well, it's not right. The optics are not good. The hell with the optics. Look at the government right now. It's ground to a halt on this very issue. Complete freaking chaos. Day 2 of back to school. And on this whole, predicated on this whole ridiculous idea that, can you buy a cabinet minister for $100? Who knew that things would get this nuts this fast?
Mm-hmm.
And the only real revelation, guys, is that, and I'm as guilty as anybody else, the perception of support for the Coalition Avenir Québec in Quebec was 25 miles wide and about 3/4 of an inch deep. This is how this thing is flamed out. And remember, we have another 2 years of this to come.
What fun we're in store for Thank you, Jim.
Always a pleasure, and always a lot of fun.